I'm becoming the most organised over dad. Is that right, Jack?
How many I've got on my plate?
You know what else is on my plate, bro?
This is running, by the way.
Yeah. What about that alarm clock that goes off every morning at 4:30 and coops up?
I know that. I did it for 8 years.
Yeah, I know. You don't do it now, though.
Did it go off at 4:30 this morning, or you go a little bit later?
Went off a little bit later. Damn, I shouldn't have told you that. Yeah. Word's starting to get out. Let's do a big emotional intro like we do for everyone. Justin Horo, a.k.a. Scope, Eels legend, Manly Seagulls legend, media behemoth, mate, doing excellent
emerging,
things. Yeah.
Emerging behind the Darth Vader that is Den and Kemp.
But welcome to the potty, mate.
Thanks, boys.
Mate.
Thanks for having me.
We're coming
Matty,
over Scopes.
Jack.
Good on you, mate. Thank you.
Yeah. Because we know it wasn't an easy drive over here. You were saying that, and you've invoiced us for the fuel that you to come over here, the tolls.
You know what? I'll settle for an upper crust pie.
Oh, yeah.
Mate,
Yeah,
that was... So I used to just live around the corner in my first year of Manly, and I frequent that a couple of times after a big night.
How good is it?
Had a few beers, and the next morning, a Sunday morning, nothing better.
Yeah.
What type of pie? What you go to?
The chicken and white wine one.
Oh, white wine.
That's a
Love
doozy.
it. Yeah.
I'm a steak, onion, and cheese.
And I'm a steak and cheese would be my number two.
You don't like
steak
onion?
and cheese. I don't hate it, but just nice and simple for the pie. In saying that, chicken and white wine probably not simple for most people, but it was the signature one. So when I got over here, everyone told me you've got to try it, and then obviously it was the Mickey.
Good.
So
Yeah.
Letting people know if you want the best pie, I think in New South Wales, upper crust on the northern beaches.
Got best pie in Australia about 3 years running.
Yeah, wow.
You see it on the side. Oh, sorry, you can't spell. When you go past the site of the premise.
Oh, it does. They advertise it. Well, you go up there at lunchtime, like any day of the week,
still packed,
mate. Line around the corner, like literally for so long, and it's like you got to get there. Don't go between 11:30 and 12:30. I'm gonna tell you something because you'll be lining up for ages. You know what else they do? Excellent stuff. Apple pie with whipped cream on top.
Holy shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's seriously.
If I was going to mix it up, spinach and ricotta, I don't mind just like a nice spinach and ricotta roll. So that was another option. Sometimes a pie and a spinach and ricotta.
Yeah.
Just depending.
I
go the curry. I like the curry pies. I've just got into them. And the pepper steak pies. But the curry pies, I'm sick for it.
Curry ones are really good. I find it weird that like we're the only, well, not the only one, but we're one of the only countries that really like does the pie. Because America
it's a mining thing.
A pie in America, it's like that pumpkin pie and things like that.
So areas that have had a tradition of coal mining have pies. Because the pie originally, the pastry, that was just a cover for what sat within the pie when they go down the coal mines.
Okay.
So it was to protect whatever was in. So back in the day, they would open up the pastry and not eat the pastry. So it was just like a lid inside. It was basically like the lid, remove the lid, and then eat the contents to protect from the coal dust.
Really?
Okay.
So is there any other country?
And then somewhere along the way, someone decided let's just eat the whole thing. It's the same with battered fish. The batter on a fish was to protect the fish when they went down the mines.
Yeah, wow. Because New Zealand do good pies too.
Yeah, really good.
Really good one. Yeah, Will Warbrick, when he came over to Storm from New Zealand, used to say, whenever we'd go get a pie, boys go, how good's this? And he'd go, nah, gee, the pies in New Zealand are they're way better in New Zealand. Like, bro, just be like grateful for the pie you're eating right now.
A lot of Kiwis will back that up. Like Kiwis, that's, bakeries and fish and seafood. They're going to claim that.
Yeah. They take it personally.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Jeez, I tell you what, Will Ward, the sevens player for All Blacks.
Moses Leo, who debuted a couple of weeks ago.
Good to see him get a start.
Yeah.
Really good. The more that come across, the more that will come across. That makes sense.
Correct. Yeah. Setting a standard.
No, it's got nothing to do with setting a standard. It's setting a trend.
Exactly. Mate, we had Cheese on the podcast a little bit ago, and we told some good Byron Bay stories. Your name come up a couple of times. Because, of course, when we went to Byron Bay after the 2020 grand final, you were up there as well with a little crew.
Yep.
Some good memories. I remember you were up there with Corey Norman.
Yep.
James Seguiaro.
Chico? Yes, Chico was there in a different group, but the same year he was up there.
And Matty Moylan.
And Moisa.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a good crew.
Our crew, Toddy Carney was there as well, and maybe there was like Chico became really good mates with these boys from Cronulla, and I believe one of them was either on their Bucks or something like that. going up. So me, Normie, and Moisa jumped on last minute and just got our own little place, and then we end up running into you guys, and then jumping on the back end of
just jumping on the Mad Monday. It was funny. Remember we were up because it was Melbourne Cup.
It was too.
Remember we were up there at Melbourne Cup. We all bought like blazers, like $2 op shop blazers, and we went to this pub, Brunswick Hotel or something, I think it was, and we watched the Melbourne Cup. We had a massive day. Anyway, we come out of the pub. And there were, remember the group of homeless people that were sitting there, and they all had instruments.
Oh, you sure they were homeless?
No, they were homeless.
What did they tell you?
They were sitting on milk crates.
That doesn't mean they're homeless.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
We didn't clarify that, did we? But you just started getting the gat out. Didn't you grab one of the guitars?
Grabbed the guitar of him because Cheese was like, bro, that's who Cheese ran in and goes, bro, there's a group of homeless people out there and they've got a guitar. And he knew I played a little bit. He goes, let's go. So we went out there. And we started playing Better Be Home Soon by Crowded House.
And for people who haven't got a home.
I know, for the homeless. And remember there was the guy playing like the flute?
Yes.
And all you boys were sitting there arm in arm singing. It was a great night.
Mate, that was a great moment. Like, yeah, the day was awesome. But I remember sitting around. I think I've got it recorded for sure. I remember, and then it not only went from there, we all got in the van and some sort of Uber system together, and we're just belting out songs like Oasis, Wonderwall on the way home. It was that was a good little arvo, and I think it was off the back of the Melbourne Cup. So good day.
And Better Be Home Soon. Should have been hope to get home soon.
Well, the rest of us were okay.
I'd hope to get home soon.
But remember Normie as well. Jack actually reminded me when we were talking about Byron stories before this. I believe. Did Normie have a bit of an accident that trip as well? Remember he urinated the bed, and he pissed.
Vaguely. That's something like that's something Normie would do though. So that doesn't stand out. Like even though that's a story for Byron potentially, that's something he would be doing. Jackie,
from memory, he stayed at our place.
Oh, that's right.
And we had the double mattress downstairs. So it was a mattress on top of a lounge that he'd fit on. And I believe he pissed the bed so much that night that it went through both mattresses and there was a puddle of piss underneath the double mattress. It was awesome.
That's why I don't remember it, because we'd come over the next day and I sort of didn't have as big one as Normie, obviously, and you guys, and he crashed at your place.
He didn't.
So then me and Moisa come over in the morning together, potentially come grab him, and I remember you were going like, come on, like he's been here for a while.
He's time to move on.
He wouldn't leave.
Trying to join that homeless crew.
That was the night that one of my favourite memories of it. We were all sitting there. It was me, Shandor, and Normie. And we all had our shirts off sitting behind the table playing music. And somebody I think it was Connor Watson. Connor Watson goes, hey, look, that's Shandor at 21. That's Shandor at 31, pointing to Shandor then, and then points at Normie and goes, and that's Shandor at 41. And everyone was laughing. And Shandor leant into Normie and he goes, I will never not have abs. Because everyone used to call him, because Normie had that just notorious pot belly.
Mudders.
Yeah, it would have never had a six.
That's my nickname for him, Mudders, because the mud guts. Like he was the only one half in the game that could get away with the mud guts and still play at a high level.
There's a few of them going around at the moment. There's a story in the sport. Oh, it's a big one. It's a magazine associated with the New York Times, and they explained the dad bod off Mahomes. They were saying that people who, Cameron Smith's another one.
Yep.
They just said before, Normie.
Cameron Munster,
in the fact that they said they're almost like a Swiss Army knife. They can do a little bit of everything. That's what makes them.
Yeah, well, I remember Munster said when he actually lost weight and got, people found it easier to tackle him because he was so thick around the gut, just from his poor diet habits at the time, that he was actually so hard to what it's like to try to wrestle someone. You try to get double underhooks and then pop the lower back.
Yeah.
He was so thick that you couldn't pop his lower back because it was like a lot of belly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at fighters, if fighters go down sometimes just a kilo or two, lose a little bit, it gets to a point that from fitness to you start to lose strength.
Yeah.
So there you
even
go.
with the UFC fighters, I'm thinking about it now as we're talking about, like Habib and Makhachev and all those guys, they're not totally ripped, are they?
No.
They're really good maulers and wrestlers, but and the other one with the quarterbacks is there's a Tennessee Titans quarterback called Will Levis.
Yep.
He's way too ripped. His mechanics and that, it doesn't suit it. So
look at Brock Jarvis. when he was fighting. Like Thurman said, but before the fight, Keith Thurman said, he's too ripped. He's got too much muscle. He can't move. And, it's interesting. We said, I've seen the one before. What was it when we're talking about something, Coop? You said something before. I'm trying to think.
NFL?
Might have been NFL. Anyway, we'll come back to it.
You're talking about money? He was talking about money in the rig?
We're sort of piecing this. We're all going
What are you talking about?
A little bit. It was worthwhile saying, but I just forget what it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's continue. Daly Cherry-Evans, before we talk about his current plight, Daly's wedding. It seems to be sort of the point. That's almost the pebble in the pond where the reverberation started. A certain MC there pointing out that, geez, Des Hasler's here, but not Anthony Sewbold, and certainly not Tony Mestre.
I reckon he's brought this up on every podcast the last 4 weeks. He's relentless with it.
A lot of people have been bringing it up with me because of the relationship as well. So a lot of people have been trying to get information out of it. You were outstanding too, by the way. And Jack, you clipping up that the pod you did with Brad Parker about me dressing to go to Wharfie. So many people sent me that. Little Lukey Stowe sent me that originally, and I had a good laugh about it.
You copped an unnecessary stray there.
Yeah.
Because you were dressed, you weren't in a standard suit.
No.
You were dressed like you were going to Wharfie.
Yeah.
But I don't think Parks was referring to you when he was trying to throw you under the bus.
I know, look, because you're going after him and he's trying to deflect. So he's trying to deflect away. So there was me and a couple of the Islander boys, Sipley and Paseka. We were a little bit more underdressed than others. But Jackie, I know you're behind it. You put it in the clip, the picture of me, Money and Ches. And they're in a bag of fruit as well. They're looking at Mickey. And I'm standing there looking like I'm going to Wharfie next door.
Yeah, Daily Mail got
Fit
it.
for what? Fit for what? That's what I was going to say. You know when people aren't ripped? It's like, what is fitness? Fit for what? So if you can play rugby league, you're fit for rugby league. You're fit for UFC. You're fit for running 400 metre. They're all different.
Yeah.
Hence, let's continue. For instance, have you ever been the peak of your powers when you're playing rugby league and you're fit for rugby league, but then you walk up a set of stairs with your wife and she's fine and you're exhausted?
Yeah. You know what?
Fit for what?
I was actually thinking, I didn't know where you were going with that at the start. I thought, well, we'll cut this out, but I do understand what you're talking about now because I was thinking about this yesterday. You went from Parramatta to Manly, which we're going to get into, but every rugby league team, they all train hard, but they all kind of do different drills, which are kind of hard. I remember going from Melbourne, who train really, really hard, but then going to Manly, who train very hard as well. But the running type of stuff, they do more long distance stuff.
Yeah, gotcha.
And it felt like, even though I was fit from my time at Melbourne, it felt like I was like 17 again, shit fitness, because it was just, my body was not fit for that kind of running.
It was completely different.
Yeah.
Because we had Steve Kearney and Brad Arthur from Melbourne. So we trained similar to you guys. They were trying to implement that at Parramatta when I was there. So it took a massive adjustment. Like the training was completely different at Manly. But the one thing I sort of remember from that time is we were getting sort of similar to what you're saying about money. I would have been at Parramatta about 95, 96 kilos during the Kearney and when Brad Arthur took over, because we would just, those wrestle sessions. They found a shed out at Parramatta that they tried to replicate what Melbourne had been doing. It was a really high intensity sort of setup. And then when I got to Manly, we trained hard, but everyone loves a schooner. Yeah. And it's like the older boys had the runs on the board. So, especially during my time, before you got there, it was the older boys. Yeah, the older boys would come in 3 days a week in preseason, which I loved. But whenever they come in, the intensity of those sessions would be top tier, and then us younger guys, we would train 5 days a week like normal. But it's just completely different. Like Donnie Singe and Jeff Tuvian, that they knew that they had the runs on the board, so it was tweaked a little bit different to suit more of the older boys. Yeah. And then I imagine it would have changed, the regime changed. And was Donnie still around when you were there as well? Or has Donnie moved on?
Yeah, he's moved on. Yeah, I missed him. That's so funny that you say that. I can't believe that so how many of the boys would only come in 3 times? So that's from November till what?
Till December.
Okay, so
after
pre-Christmas.
Yep, everyone would start back together. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday would be the sessions they rock up. And then obviously all the rest of us do Tuesday and Thursday. But that was Brett, Glenn, Steve Maddai, Anthony Watmo, Jamie Lyon. This is like a couple of years, maybe Chocky was playing Australian in the Australian team, so we didn't even see him at all.
Wow.
Jason King, Brent Kite, Matty Ballon. So there was a large portion.
Yeah, right.
That's half your first grade.
Pardon me. Yeah. So because Donnie gave them the freedom, a lot of them would still turn up on the Tuesday and Thursday and go in the gym and just do their own stuff.
Yeah.
They'd be visible. They might come in, do a little morning session and take off. But because they had the runs on the board and we knew, like Donnie knew that they weren't going to let him down on the field, then we'd just rip in. And Tuesdays and Thursdays would be a bit of a downer, but Monday, Wednesday, Friday was the Mickey. Like we would all be up and they'd be flying and we got the best out of it.
It's interesting to say about that, about when blokes got the runs on the board or the muscle memory, they've been training for a long, long time. I remember at Melbourne once, Alex Corvo, who was the strength and conditioner there for a long time, he was saying when they would bring young players in from, coming down from Brisbane or wherever, is that they would train them in high volume in the weight room. So it'd be like 5 sets of 16, slow and things like that. And he said what it was about was building your base so that when they're at the club for 5-6 years, they can come back in mid-January, putting those miles in the clock now. But it's really interesting when you blokes are talking about that different ways of training. Like one of the big mysteries when I was coming through was that you could run 400s, 800s, 200s, 10 100s all pre-season, non-stop. You could be fit as you've ever been. But as soon as you get out on the field, you're knackered. And we used to say, right, what is match fitness? Well, match fitness is wrestling in a lot of ways, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like it just wasn't done really in the 90s.
Nah. And even now, it doesn't matter how big your preseason is now. Come trial game 1, like no matter how much wrestling you do, how much running, you're still so gassed.
Yeah.
Like obviously they do it because it helps like prepare your body for a big season. It stops injury prevention and things like that. But nothing like there is no training you can do that replicates, gets your match fitness up.
The Wigan boys, when we were at Wigan, there were a couple of the blokes that used to go to this legendary place in Wigan to do some wrestling. It was called the Snake Pit. And they called it that. There was a bloke who was a really legendary trainer there. And the British Bulldogs would be there sometimes. Davey Boy Smith from the British Bulldogs, who was a Wiganer. They reckon they went in there once and Bret Hart was in there. So, a few of the boys used to go and train in that place. It sounded to me a little hardcore.
Yeah.
You wouldn't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was apparently pretty hardcore.
I don't know what you're alluding to.
Oh no, what I mean hardcore. I'm not talking about wrestling where get your hooks in. I'm talking about blokes getting held in certain holds and screaming and
tapping
stuff
out and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Oh god. The current Manly side. Would you consider yourself a Manly fan or a Parramatta fan?
Well, I spent 3-3 splitted them. Probably more Manly because we had more success there.
I wanted to ask you, Haumole Olakau'atu, because this year he's started phenomenally. Yeah. You're a former back rower for the Manly Seagulls. You've played off Ches before. Mate, just only slightly different. Still, you broke as many tackles as him as well. What are your thoughts on the big fella? Because he's got every string to his bow.
Yeah, I love it. I remember when he first hit the scene, could only, last 30 or 40 minutes before the big fella would gas out, which is understandable. But he's really developed into a proper 80-minute back rower who can be just as effective at the start of the game as he is at the back end now. You look at that on the weekend when they're losing by a fair bit, 65-minute. Ches, I think, throws him a ball, just nothing doing. Bang, Wooshka finds Sabi and puts him away. A couple of the back rowers now in the competition, like on the other side, Ali Katoa, Viliami Kikau on the left.
Yeah, even bloke like Jake Preston.
Yeah, he's a weapon.
Jeez, good play, mate.
Like not the mould of that Katoa and Haumole, but he's
smarts and know-how.
Yeah, but just goes hard too. But Haumole, I feel like this year he's got a work rate that he hasn't had the years gone by. Like he's always been a game breaker, but you've seen the first few rounds, like his defensive efforts. Like he's not. It's not just blokes running at him and he's flogging them. Like he's chasing blokes. And just blokes are running sideways, backwards to get away from him.
Yeah, I thought a really good sign in the off-season was when they promoted him to vice-captain or part of the leadership group.
Yeah.
So it must have shown how much work he's put in over the last couple of years under Siebes. And he must have had, I'd imagine it would have been disrupted. Did he play for Tonga? He would have,
Yeah.
So he must have had a really good January, February going into the season because that was announced. And, great sign for Haumole and Ches on that right edge will currently.
Well, unless Haumole goes to the Roosters. But it's not fun like with Haumole. I look at Haumole and I think to myself, like, at the moment it's feed Haumole early. Yeah, he wants the ball early. But for him, if he takes that next step in his career and actually starts to take a leaf out of, say, Preston or Britton Nickera's book and actually start to whack holes, mate, honestly, he's unstoppable. Like, you saw the difference a few years ago with David Fafita operating on that left, and he was a player, it's just like, oh, give me the ball early. And then all of a sudden he had a really good 12 months because he had Kieran Foran teaching him about the science of the game. You know, and that's like Jacob Preston. You know, would he survive if he just kept getting the ball early? You know, maybe, but would he be as good a player? No way in the world. It's learning that sort of science of the game with a lot of players. It's the next step. Yeah.
How much did, like, you've played with Ches. How much of an impact does Ches have for his back rowers? Because I imagine
Ches was tough. I really struggled because I started with Kieran on the left. So when I was on the left, Kieran, as you know, like, was Kieran there as well for
Kieran? He'd just gone to the Titans.
Okay, yeah. So
cleared up some salary cap for me.
Big money signing from.
He was the Dylan Brown of Manly.
Fozzie was so detailed, prepared before games, and then would even just see cues as would the game was on flowing. So he might tell me, Fozzie, you're going to be getting at Matty. Get at Matty's inside shoulder a couple of plays before. I want you to lay that line, but we've got something else coming to the right. So I was like, always had a plan with Foz. With Ches, there was none of that. And that was, maybe it's changed over time. He's probably got better at it over the years. But I used to just have to react. And there was a couple of games we were really struggling. So Tooves and Dave Penner was the assistant coach. He's like, how are you going on the right? And I said, oh, yeah, no, it's I'm just trying to figure it out, but yeah, we'll get there. And they said, oh, well, it's not working. We're going to flick you back over to the left. So I spent some time back on the left, and then out of necessity, I'd actually been sort of just fell out of favour a little bit in 15. And then in order to get myself back in the team, I had to play on the right, and I actually ended up finishing 2015 really good with him because I started to realise, all right, you just got to be ready for everything. It's not like Foz. So his mannerisms and you know, he'd start sharp as he looks like he's about to tack in behind the markers, but then he'd kick out. All right, so now I'm dropping under. Just little things like that I had to get better at, and it's a little bit different. Like I said, a little bit different with Haumole. He just goes,
I always found that. I found that very surprising when I got to Manly. Like, for someone who, you know, played Australia, played Origin, Ches wasn't a big, like, a communicator for what he was going to do. He was just so off the cuff, and it was like the players around him need to know what he's going to do. Like, he's still very much like that. Like, you know, he will just float, and he's so good he's got such a good IQ of just reacting to the defense, which a lot of people don't. Munster's got that. Remember when Trent Liero first went into first grade, he played on the left edge with Munster, and they really struggled for the year because Trent was someone that needed to know, like, I'll do whatever you tell me, but I need to know, like, what you need to tell me. And Money go, sweet. And just wouldn't tell him. And then
just take off.
And then just take off, and, like, he'd just do, we used to call it mun ball, which is like not even Mun knows what he's doing. So how's the defense going to know? But then Trent obviously moved into the middle, and he was like, oh, I found my game. So it benefited me so much more because in the middle it's so standard structured. But you see Sean Bloor on that left edge now. He's very good at reacting to what Money does.
Takes reps.
Well, that's what makes a great combination, isn't it? Like, if you look at Ches and Kieran, you've got Kieran who can set structure up and tell you who he's getting to and be really thorough. Then on the other side of the field, you've got a Maverick who just jumps around. You can find that happy medium in Melbourne, 2017. Yeah, you had Cooper Cronk operating around the field, and you had Munster who was just playing completely on instinct. It's a great combination. Otherwise, you've got two halves there trying to play halfback.
That's why. So before I moved over there, that was the year that Gifty had moved on. Glenn Stewart. Glenn Stewart and Jamie Lyon, that was his right edge to begin his career. They're just out and out footy players.
Yes,
like I've seen you talk about them before, Matty, in years past. Like, they were just really, like, top tier park footy players. You know, they play exactly what's in front of them. So, like, Glenn Stewart had a few moves that he'd work each game, but those three on that right edge, whatever they seen, and if they got numbers, it didn't matter. No one had to. It felt like they didn't have to say anything, and they were just in sync, and they'd just go after it.
Mate, they would have been. I mean, it was so good for Daly when he got in there. Yeah, for a bloke who's got a great running game over the advantage line. dip out. If he likes what he sees, take him on. If he doesn't, feed Glenn early.
Yep.
It's a great way to get
Glenn would
into
just
career.
sit there. We used to have a player, I forget what it was called. Still maybe it was something like Freshie, short side Freshie or something.
Yeah.
We used to sit there. I imagine they've changed the name now. Glenn would sit there 3-on-3, and then if he got 3-on-3 or even 2, like they're taking it, but he'd just go, Ches, let's go, and then Ches would just start ripping from the open side of the play down the short side, and then they'd just create an overlap. And that silky little play that he used to do out the back of the centre, line, that was just always off the cuff. That was never planned. So
really?
That was just whatever gift he's seen.
So did imagine like when you're doing edge v edge at training, if you're on the left edge defending those 4, was that just a nightmare?
It was the best. Like that's why I improved so much in 13 and 14. Like I just learned how to play like rugby league, even though I couldn't execute the same as what those guys did. It was just learning the game. So like there was and the battle between Stevie Maddai and Jamie Lyon, they used to be really competitive against each other. So at training, I always say this all the time, like training sessions were harder than games sometimes.
Yeah, wow.
Like it was just on, and it was a great environment, and I'd just be observing everything and just trying to, I try to do those moves. So I'd go to Foz. I said, do you want to try a little short side Freshie this week? And he goes, we're all right, Aussie. Just put it in the back pocket, even though,
Scope, just stay on the tools.
Yeah. Just run me inside 3-man.
Let's stick to our straight.
What about Jamie Lyon? I haven't seen many more pure footballers than Killer.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about dad bod. Like James Graham, I've said before, when he turned up at St Helens from Wee War, they all went, oh, Jesus, look at this bloke. And they did fitness, and he was so far behind everyone. But as soon as the ball hit his hands, everyone went, Jesus Christ, look at this bloke.
Yeah,
played against him for a couple of years before we got there. He's a player that I didn't appreciate enough until I got there.
Yeah,
just a really good human, really good locker room guy. He's obviously our skipper, but he dusted us up so much on that left versus right, just at training, just doing little moves and subtleties that you're just like, wow. Yeah. Like I got to see it pretty much every week,
What about the market at the moment? We're talking about this before the podcast, and like the DCE situation, which we've spoken about. I don't think I spoke to you about it, Scope, when we were on the radio, to say there are so few quality, pure number 7s out there that I thought there is no way the Manly are going to allow him to wander out the door or someone pinch him. And now what the Dylan Brown contract has done to the rest of the market, suddenly you got Lockie Galvin, some people saying 5 years, $1 million a year. Lockie must be going, Jesus, I could just sit on my ass and my price is going to go up there.
Yeah.
And then you got a little bit of a story that Fletcher said to me as we're recording this just recently on Isaiah Katoa. That might be proven wrong as this is put out, but talk that he's unsettled at the Dolphins. Well, the reason he's unsettled is because to say his managers had a look at the money going around and thought to himself, mate, I could probably get 1.3 million here. 1.3 million a year for Isaiah.
Yeah. Especially because I seen the clip when you're talking to Fletch about it. He just did his deal too. So there might be a little bit of frustration from not only the players if they've just got a deal done because of the Dylan Brown situation, but even the managers going, geez, I could have pushed a little bit more. Or how can we figure out a way to sort of, get this re-upped?
Because he is a player they just can't let go.
No.
The Dolphins, they have to find any means possible to keep him in that club.
Yeah. You look at the halves coming through in the next 5 years when your Cheses and that sort of the leaders that are in there now, Munsters, Hughes, come towards the end. It's Katoa, Galvin, like they're going to be the next. They're going to be the next Origin stars.
Yeah.
And if you don't retain those blokes now, they're going to be in a world of hurt for 10 years. Whoever's playing against them.
But on the Manly situation again with DCE, what has confirmed probably the madness of letting him go is have a look at the difference. And this guy is not a 7, but he's a clever player, operates in the middle of the field. Have a look at the difference that Dylan Walker made when he came on the field the other day for Parramatta.
Yeah.
Immediately he got into that middle field. He alleviated the pressure off Hawkins and Dylan Brown and made his pass selection. Everything changed. The tempo of their attack just went through the roof. That's purely experience.
Yeah. He's a freak.
Dylan Brown ended up running about 18 times off the back of that, didn't he?
Mate, you just saw the difference, Scope, because he just took the pressure off him as far as decision-making and pushing the side around the park.
Hey, going back to let's go back into a bit of your career for a sec. Started at Parramatta. Some of the players that you played with, because I think the skipper when you were there was Matthew's colleague, Nathan Hindmarsh?
The first year was Kalo. I had 1 year of
Kalis.
Nathan Kalis, and then Hindy 11, 12.
What was Hindy? Because Hindy is he's a look. He was an outstanding player, 300 gamer, but his personality, I find he would have been a very like strange sort of captain.
Mate, I was always all right with Hindy for some reason. He was hard on younger guys. Like, he was a bit of an old school.
Very old school guy.
Yeah, yeah. And I see he tries to keep it up now on the show sometimes with players. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know. Mate, because I'd spent a lot of, similar to you guys, Coop and Jack, because you spent a lot of time around NRL players because of my dad playing first grade, I probably didn't get as starstruck early on, which some players go through when they start off, they can be a bit tentative. So, I never really felt like that with Hindy, but I used to see him sometimes. He used to put it on. And he's the sort of guy to, might put someone on show, but then give you a wink, like when they walk past and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, he was good. He was good. He was at the back end, a legend of the club. What's that old award when it was like the fans voted for him? He won
Proven Summons.
Proven Summons.
Yeah, every single year.
Like, he hated it.
Yeah, I know. It's like getting Clubman of the Year.
Oh, did he not like getting them?
No, well, because then, it was like, the nicest guy in the comp award, basically, in which he was. Like, he was, he was a legend. He was really good to the fans. Unreal player. The premiership thing sucks for him, but he did everything else.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, he was good. I got along with him. Mate, some of the other boys, took a little bit to get used to Hindy, but we used to sit next to each other in the auditorium when we do like video sessions and that. And he used to tell these like shitty little jokes that weren't funny.
Yeah,
like,
not funny whatsoever.
He's not funny at all, but I'd laugh at how awkward it was because, he's a 300 gamer. He's an Origin player.
You're trying to get on his good side.
He's trying to be quirky, and then it would just get crickets and I'd just be going, tapping him.
There's quirky and there's quirky. That's doubly quirky when you're sitting there going, God, that's not even funny. What he does, he has the strangest opinions on things sometimes. Hindy, we'll get there on the show and he'll just say something before and I'll say, do you really mean that? And he'll go, yeah. And I say, mate, that's fair enough. Okay, just go with it. You're the negative one.
Was Jared Hayne? Was there a young Jared Hayne there as well with you?
Hainesy. So me and Hainesy were really close because we went to school together, and then also he lived with my family. So my parents were house parents for Parramatta for a 6-year period.
Yeah, right.
And when Hainesy first hit first grade, he was living in Campbelltown with his mother. And it was too far to travel, so they moved him in with our family. And, he went on that crazy run. He moved so he lived 2007 and 8 with us, and then 09 was the Daly MU.
Yeah, right.
That was incredible. 09, watching him at the start of that year, Dean Leonson played him at 6, I believe.
Yeah.
He was playing him at 6, and we commentated a game one night, and like, Scope, he was uninterested. Like, he was standing out there. He I remember watching the game going, mate, look at the talent. This guy is completely wasting the talent that God gave him. And then they moved him back to fullback halfway through the season. Oh, geez, I tell you what. You talk about greatest runs. Kalen Ponga. Ben Barber.
Tommy Turbo.
But I think that is the greatest run I've ever seen with Hainesy.
Yeah, if you go probably further in the year than Turbo, because it was like a 10-week period with Hainesy, right? Like the start of that year was pretty bad. Like I was in the full-time squad at that time, so it like people forget the start of the year, how the form was, and probably what you're alluding to there, Matty. But when he went on that run, there's probably I haven't seen anything like that in my footy career. The energy around like the crowds, the one that stands out is the prelim final against the Bulldogs. That's the best atmosphere I've ever been involved in, and I wasn't even a player. I was just part of the squad at the time, so we all would get to. It's like you get tickets and you sit there. And I remember looking around. I think it felt like it was 100,000. I don't know if they brought it in by that stage of the call, but it was Bulldogs versus Parramatta to go into the grand final, and it was electric and
incredible.
And that was the back of the end of the run of what Hainesy was
two
doing.
Fiery teams. The fans of those two clubs are as fiery as you get.
Well, the Roosters at that point that week brought over a young South African kid who was a fullback, and they were going to sign him, and I remember I was talking to Peter O'Sullivan and Brian Smith at the time, and they brought him over here to just have a look and say, mate, run through some drills and we'll see what you think. And I said, oh, yeah, you know, you could see, mate, he's a very talented kid. Then they said, mate, what we're going to do tonight, we're going to take him to the Parramatta versus the Bulldogs and just tell him, oh, mate, this is just a normal game. Well, it did the reverse. He went there with the nature of the crowd, how hostile it was, and then the type of game it was, and went, there's no fucking way I'm signing for I'm not signing.
No way.
I'm not signing in rugby league. I'm not going near this game.
Yeah, because you and Dad actually shared a teammate crossing roads, Tamana Tahu.
Oh yeah, T.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, when I was looking at that squad. But T would have been in the back end of his career then.
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
T was the opposite of Hindy. T was he was really welcoming to all the young. He used to I felt like T went out of his way to make sure we all felt comfortable. And that sounds bad if you're just listening to the body now. yeah. But like, there's a quirky side to what Hainsey was in that old school manner. But I think T wanted to make sure, especially me, maybe being Kiwi as well.
Yeah.
That was maybe a factor. But yeah, T was awesome, and I was very lucky because I went from Tamana to Steve Matty in the centres, and I was a back rower and I played on their edge. So there was a certain level of protection that I felt when I played with those two. But T was unreal, and then we had a pretty cool moment. They must have got him back in 2010 because then we played in the New Zealand Māoris together at the end of the year in an exhibition game.
Yeah,
and he was our captain. He was our co-captain. Him and Clinton Torpey had never played for the New Zealand Māori before, but they were at the back end of their career, and they wanted to represent that side of their family. That would have been 2010 with
talking about some good players there. Clinton Torpey was some sort of player, but Tamana, like just freakish. The presence he had on his edge, when he really matured as a player and he became as good in defence as attack, mate. The presence he had, it was terrifying. Remember 2007? There was a grand final qualifier at the Telstra Dome, whatever it's called now, Marvel Stadium down there, Parramatta versus Storm. Yeah. And T was against Israel, and he just tore Israel to pieces. Melbourne won the game, but Tamana was the best player in the field by a mile. I remember at full time, Bellyache went up and grabbed Tamana because it was Tamana's last game before he went back to Union, just grabbed him and said, mate, I've fucking never seen a performance like that before. Yeah. He was amazing.
Because like we all like from your time, Matty, and when he started at Newcastle, he was this highlight reel on the wing and the flick passes from Gids and all that. By the time he got to us, I remember 2010. Actually, there was a game where Sammy Burgess first year, and he smokes Daniel Mortimer, like proper got him bad, and then he was our left. He was my left edge half. And then Tamana went after and got Sammy a beauty in that game. Oh, really? Just as a bit of a payback. Yeah, because Sammy was a right edge back rower when he first got Avery. And then I think maybe Morty took it to the line. Sammy smokes him. And then Tamana made sure he got payback for our edge.
Got him.
And got him a beauty.
We'll try to find that, Jack. We'll try to get that vision.
Yeah.
Is that the Eels, in comparison to Manly, you spoke about beers at Manly, put on a little bit of weight. Is it work hard, play hard? Because there's so many different cultures at different teams based on, the players you got in it and the culture of the club. Manly is very much like that. You train hard, but you get on the beers with all the boys. Was Parramatta like that?
No. It was opposite. It was the other way around, yeah. Because Steve had come from Melbourne and he was trying to implement the Melbourne way, he was a lot more detailed. The first year was a little bit loose. Not loose as in... probably wasn't as strict, and we enjoyed a beer. Like my first year, I felt like, we had some good times, and I'm a rookie and going out and enjoying all that sort of stuff. Then Steve Kearney arrived, and he had a strict no drinking policy after the game. Yeah, so no matter wherever we went, if we travelled, we never went out, and you weren't allowed to have terps. You recover in the morning, you do your recovery. So a completely different regime.
So would that mean you go the whole year basically without drinking?
Well, you could have a drink on the following day.
Oh, yeah, okay.
If the schedule allowed it. But he was Steve was pretty full on.
I think they can be counteractive.
Yeah. Because letting people know, rarely do you get 7-day, 8-day turnarounds. When you do get them, you're like, far out, this is awesome, we can have a beer, which is like if you play Saturday, the following Saturday. So to push it back another day, you're not allowed to drink after the game. Yeah. There'd probably only be 3 times a year you'd be able to have a beer.
We're young too, so we had some rat bags in the team. We were sneaking away having a scare.
Yeah, feel free to throw them under the bus.
But we weren't Rennie Matua. Ren was leading the way.
He can't get in trouble now, can he?
Ren's sweet now.
No,
so there was
you'll laugh at it now.
Yeah. There was a bit of a gang where, we'd break away and, Ben, try to test the rules as much as and look, you think you're getting away with it too at the time because you're young and they know, like they're finding out when we're sneaking off to the cross or something after a game when we're not supposed to, and there's a certain amount of rules. But yeah, that was the rule though. And those couple of rough years because we weren't winning games as well. So as you know, sometimes after a loss, sometimes you just want to have a schooner and just get some things out. Get some stuff off your chest and with other players.
Sometimes the answer is at the bottom of a bottle. Literally,
the Saturday Night Live clip, couple of beers.
Yeah, couple of beers.
See that? Couple of beers.
Yeah.
Gillis.
Shane Gillis.
Yeah.
Shane Gillis.
What was the other one? A little bump.
Yeah. Not that we condone that sort of thing.
No, absolutely not.
No. But I remember when we were at Melbourne, same thing. We had a little bit of a rat pack, and we'd go out. So no, you're not supposed to go out 7-day turnarounds. Sometimes, let's go out 6-day turnarounds. We're supposed to have review the next day, and we'd go out. Now, stupid to us, we'd go to the one place that we were really hooked up at, and that was the Albion in South Melbourne because Robbie Kearns was part owner of it. So the Kern dog, we'd ring the Kern dog. He's at home having dinner with his fam. Guernsey, mate, you get us in. Yeah, bloody oath, boys. Like we thought we were going to get away with it when we're going to an old players club who was still employed by the club. And we'd roll in the next day, all be winking at each other, like telling stories to the locker room. We'd go up to the video session, and then Billy could be like, "Hey, can Coops, Munster, Harry, Brandon, can you guys just stay back as well?" And we're going, "Oh shit!"
You think you're getting away with it when you're winning too, right? Like if you're winning, you think you can sneak in there, and then you're just like, there's no way we're getting away with it. But you're young, you're naive. Yeah, you don't worry too much.
That's good fun.
So what were the circumstances in going to Manly then? Were you let go by Eels, or do you just go for?
I got the punt. I got the punt from Sticky. So
join the club,
Ricky. This is one of my one of my most famous stories that I've told on podcasts now over the years. But
so we'll pretend like
this is the first time for you guys. And your audience potentially. But did you remember the story about Ricky Stewart having the board up?
The overhead projector?
The projector, and it was like 9 names on it. And he's like, you guys, you're not required at the club. Did it all together in front of the players as well that were still going to stay at the club. And, so if you can find another spot, so be it. Go chat to your managers. You're not going to be required next year. You could probably, I think it was even you can go as quickly as you want. Anyway, so that was a whole big deal. I was pre-board, so he punted me before he'd even rocked up. So before he'd got to the club, he had to get there and see 9 or 10 players and figure out, all right, I don't want anything to do with those players.
So you were POG, you were pre-overhead projector.
Pre-overhead. So he just called my manager before he even arrived at the club, hadn't had a conversation with us, and then goes, look, he's just going to be playing New South Wales Cup next year. If you want to find a gig and all that, then you can do that. So it was a blessing in disguise. It worked out really well for me because I went to Manly. But there was a period of about 2 months where, because he was so, and I respect that about him now, like whether he meant that for me to go on to greener pastures or whatever it was, but because I got clarity so early on, I could make the decision, go to Manly. It worked out really well for me in hindsight. Went to the grand final the next year after a wooden spoon year the year before. So it gave me the time to sort of plan and figure it out. But the 2 months from about maybe July into October, I didn't have a club. So I was like, everyone had started back pre-season and I wasn't back doing, I didn't have a club and I was going to probably go to Super League early. So got it figured out, got to Manly, and it worked out really well.
Yeah, right. Because Tooves was your coach the whole time at Manly, right?
What about Tooves? Like, how close? I was sitting there before the 2013 grand final, you blokes leading at half time. Now, if you go on to win that game, which looked very likely at half time, you're by far the better team. Like, where does Tooves, what's Tooves doing now? Do you know what I mean? That second half, it just shows you how quickly things change.
Yeah. Even like Brad Arthur, right, from a couple of years ago.
Brad Arthur.
He gets, like, different circumstances, he gets dusted, but then he's gone within a year or two.
I want to ask you about that, Scope. Playing for Parramatta, do you feel the pressure?
Probably not to my level, but I know, like, the top tier guys did. I know, like, Jared felt it, obviously. He stands out. He was, not only an important player for Parramatta, but league wide,
Yep.
especially when I made that decision to go to the NFL. Just because of, I guess, my level of play, like where I stood in the locker room, I always just knew that, like the pressure for me was fighting to make the 17 each week. So I always had that pressure every week. I didn't really feel any external pressure around club pressure or anything like that, even though I understood the history because my dad was a Parramatta Eel player too.
Yep.
So I understood the history, but not the pressure to sort of live up to any expectations or the long drought of what Parramatta had gone through.
It's the most boom or bust club in the league. If you go back a certain year, like 2001, they made the grand final. They dropped off from there. The obvious one, like 2009 and 2010, dramatic drop off.
Yep.
And like 2022, they made the grand final against Penrith.
Yep.
And the next 2 years after that, really, again, dramatic drop off.
Yeah, they miss it, the 8, and then battling for the spoon in 24.
Man,
it's crazy how that happens like that.
Yeah, it really is. How some sides just maintain and others just go off a cliff.
That 2013 GF, you guys play against the Roosters, is because that Roosters side, it may be one of the best sides on paper in hindsight of all time. Like Sonny Bill Williams, James Maloney, Mitchell Pearce, Tuivasa-Sheck. Is he on the wing there?
Yep, Rogers' first year.
Minicello?
Yeah,
he was at the back.
Fullback. Yeah.
Like, is that... How much belief did you guys have going into that game, coming up against that side?
Well, we had a whole lot of belief because the boys had been there and done it just so recently as well. So they won 08, they won 11. They had a bit of a down year because that was the first year Des left, 12.
Yeah.
But those boys were used to playing finals. So it was... A number of players feel this, I reckon, when you get to a big moment like that and being young. Like, I just assumed we were always going to be there because that's the way that they acted. Like, that's the way the senior boys were. So even though probably on paper to a lot of people, Roosters were the better team, I felt like we had championship DNA in our team, which was, probably try to even that out a little bit. And like Matty said, we were 18-8 going into halftime, and a couple of things didn't go our way, and they got us, but we were very confident. We lost to them 5 times that year too, because we played them in the trials.
You played them 5 times?
We played them in the trials. We played them 2 times throughout the year. We played them in the first final, and then we played them in the grand final, and we lost every time, but I reckon by a combined margin of about 20 points.
Yeah, right.
Like, they got us, I think maybe the grand final was the biggest score.
Yeah, wow.
And that ended up blowing out in the end to a trial too. So we had really good contests against them. So we're confident going in there. And then just because I'm looking around and playing with guys like Glenn, especially in the forward pack, Glenn Stewart, Brent Kite, he's won a Clive Churchill in 11, in 8. Chalky.
Because Ches won the Clive Churchill in the losing side that year, right?
He did.
He did. Remember those big backlash from it?
Yeah, on Ches. And say as much as you want. I mean, you're not breaking any news here. It's historically been noted the fact that there was a split in the club. Ches and they were off with them and everything. Was that difficult to be in amongst?
Yeah. Look, I've always said this. I think there'll be a time, and Coop knows him, personally as well. We were celebrating after his 300th, weren't we?
Yeah,
we had a bit of a kick on. That was a good time. He's a really just like his footy. He took me a while to warm to him as well.
Daly,
yeah.
Yeah.
And because they were like the senior playing group were, I don't know, like they were so respected around the league as well.
Yes.
So I always felt like they had a bit of an aura about them. So once I rocked up, and there were circumstances that played out in which you could pick one side or the other during the time, but yeah, he struggled a bit during that period, and credit to him. Like, it's a completely different situation now to where he is, going through what he's going through now. But yeah, there were tough times.
Was it hard for you to remain Switzerland?
Yes, yeah, there was, because I got along really well with Brett and in particular me. So when I arrived to the club, Brett was the single one, and he's the Prince of Brookvale, and as you know, Coops, he's he runs Manly. So, and because I'm single, like, I rock up and he's, come on son, you're with me. We used to go down to Wharfie and
wearing what you wore to Chez's wedding.
Yeah, wearing all that kit and getting up to me. Me and Snake used to take off to Melbourne heaps because he liked going down to Melbourne and getting away because he was a bit more of a bigger name. So we used to go down to Melbourne heaps. And so, yeah, it was difficult the first year because I don't know if I was just being naive. I didn't I'm a bit not a people pleaser, but I like everyone getting along.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe I just pretended like it wasn't happening. Like I'd hear murmurs and little different things about it. So I was just like, maybe I can just get everyone to have a beer and it'll be sweet. But there was obviously, more deeper issues.
Well, because you are a great mate of Chez's, and so is another couple of blokes in that squad, Jamie Bureau and Tommy Simons, who are also like a couple of Chez's best mates. How hard was it for Chez's best mates, who were the young guys, going up against a little bit? It would feel sometimes like you're on the other side to Snake, Glenn, and that. Obviously, you were mates with Glenn, but with Brett. But was Tommy and JB were they clearly on Chez's side?
No, to be clear with it all, like there was nothing. It was weird energy. Like it was just no one said anything, but you could feel it. That's why I was saying like there was a bit of naivety. Like I said, I'd hang out with all different groups. I didn't just hang out with the Stewart brothers and then DCE, but I'd hang out with Georgie Dufour and there were always little groups of pockets of 4 and 5 people in every gang. And I used to just used to float around in all of them.
Yeah, right.
So you could sort of feel that there was some sort of energy around there. And then as time's gone on and more's come out, and people have done podcasts. Some more than some have talked about more than others. So you start to piece everything together. Like I said, I sort of was pretending like it wasn't happening in 13. Started to realise in 14. Realising I'm feeling like Switzerland in 14, and then the big. I think the tipping point was when a couple of the older players moved on. Like when Glenn moved on, when Chocky moved on to Para. And a few of the other older guys retired. That was a really awkward situation for everyone involved. And whether what side you sit, and you hear different parts about both sides, you could see where there's 3 sides to every story.
Yeah, that's
one
right.
side, and somewhere in between, there's going to be the truth.
And I'm not digging for anything here, Scope. I'm just purely curious because in a football club, if there's any sort of tension or drama, a lot of it comes to the surface in team meetings where you're sitting and you're doing a review as a team and you're watching a game, particularly if you've had a bad loss. And oftentimes that can bring things to the surface. There must have been some tension in those rooms.
No, this is why it wasn't, Matty, and this is why it took a while to for it to pick up, and maybe more after the fact. It was so weird, and not in a bad way, but because Ches and Foz didn't say anything in video. That sounds weird, right? Like the two, like our 7 and 6, they were younger guys. There was definitely a level of respect for the older players that was just not talked about. It was just you lived like it was an old school sort of feeling where the most vocal in video was definitely Kitey. Kitey used to talk a whole heap. Kitey, mate, very vocal and very our front row was like Kitey, Jason King, very articulate, big front rowers who knew the game really well. So we used to talk about plans outside of, what we're going to do. Snake would chirp up every now and again and say, "Oh, we're going to get this on. This is what we're going to do." Kill it. Jamie Lyon was reluctant to really say anything. So, it never surfaced. Like I'm telling you, it might sound weird to say, like, it just never popped up or was never talked about. That could be, now that I'm saying it out loud and thinking about it, that could have been the biggest problem, right? Like no one really addressed it. It was always just you felt the energy, and there was maybe whispers around all the time. But
difficult thing to confront.
No one wanted to come out and just say, "All right, this is what we," maybe over a few schooners, like I said before, Matty, where we probably should have addressed it early on, and then who knows what happens in that little run.
It's amazing. It just shows that I don't think there's any club in the league that in the past has operated so well in amongst distractions and drama like Manly. This one is going to be a really a big challenge going forward here with Daly for the rest of the season. Just with everything, everything is doing like it's funny. Oftentimes this happens when there's drama and you're going to play a game and all the spotlight's on the drama. That first game you go out there, of course you're aware of it. You just get on with it, and oftentimes you have a good performance. But you could tell going into Melbourne that Melbourne game that it was going to come to the surface a little bit. I thought when they ran on the field, I thought Daly looked really tired in that game.
Yeah, well, I imagine the week before would have been so easy to get up emotionally for it. You could really like draw on that and be like, right, boys, it's us against, You know what I mean? It's us against the club a little bit. It's us against the media. Let's go out there and prove them all wrong. And you get up so high emotionally for it. And then the next week it's like, you can't really use the same, you can't draw on that same emotion.
Yeah, like potentially just going out there to silence a few people up. Could have been motivation for not only him, but some of the other boys who are maybe feeling the effects within the playing group as well. The difference is with Ches now, and this is what I will say, like, whether whatever way you view it or how you feel about what he did, he's completely chalk. It's chalk and cheese now. Yeah, like he's doing, how I said, maybe we should have addressed it, you know, in like back in the day. He's well and truly done that now.
He's learned from that.
Yeah. He's learned from that moment, and he's come out and like I said, he's so much more confident in himself that he does, like, he cares about the club and he cares about his teammates and all that stuff, but he's not going to be as worried about the reaction, you know, what as back in the early days.
What you just said before about like that real old school mentality of there's that real respect, unsaid respect for the leaders. Like in video sessions, they are kind of the only ones that really speak. Everyone else has a downward, like doesn't really speak about it. It's funny how that kind of, you just made me think that is very much the same at Manly still.
Yeah.
Very much the same. Like I remember when I first got there, no one would talk.
Yeah.
Like no one would talk. There'd probably be 3 or 4 people, you know, the Travojeviches, they'd sort of speak. No one else would really talk.
What was it like at Melbourne? Did everyone chip in at Melbourne?
Well, that's what I was going to, that's okay. Like, I reckon they're like there's probably a few clubs that still like a bit old school like that. They're very respect driven for the old players. But Melbourne, it was like, if you've got an idea, no matter who you are, you could be a trainer. There were train and trial blokes in there for 2 weeks sometimes, and they were going, "Hey Billy, I have an idea."
That's great.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
And and you probably understand from your era, Dad. Sometimes you go like, "Shut the," you know, somebody. You've told me stories where people who are 19 have spoken up, and you guys go, "Shut up, idiot."
No, I wouldn't.
Joey used to do it.
One bloke got up and actually decided to walk towards the TV and go, "Now, if you went there," and Joey went, "Sit down. Sit the fuck down." He goes, "Mate, you are playing fucking terrible, in no position to preach to anyone. Sit the fuck down."
Yeah. Joey was there during that period as well. He was our assistant coach, Joey.
Assistant coach.
Yeah, he was our assistant coach. I won't throw a guy under the bus, but this is sort of summed it up, and this is sets the tone for the year as well. A player said something during a video session who was new to the club the same year I got there. And then all Brett Stewart did was just a mannerism, like he just moved his body because he used to just sit against the auditorium, just like not listening all the time. And he's right at the front, so he's in vision, so everyone can see Snakey. And then a player at the back started talking about the game plan or whatever it may be. This is like 3 or 4 games in. Snake just starts looking at the back of the video, like looking up at him speaking, and he didn't tell him to shut up or anything because he didn't need to. Everyone just looked, and then everyone just sort of like put their head down and started like giggling to themselves, and it was enough that no one ever did it again. It was I can't explain it. I hope I try to be example lives up to it, but he's just like moving around, and because Glenn Stewart used to sit on the other side, so he's trying to get Glenn's attention, right? And then I'm sitting right behind him because I'm directly behind him, so I've just gone, oh no, like I put my head down. Not at the guy for talking up, just to the reaction and how it's all playing out. And we were all like, it's that secondhand embarrassment as well. And it's just like,
oh no,
it's the worst feeling on it. Like, because even to talk in a public setting is hard enough.
Yeah.
And then to be publicly shamed mid-sentence as somebody's, but the best thing about, I think the best clubs do it now. Like your Penrith, I've heard stories of the boys. It's not even just Yowie and Cleary at Penrith that are chiming up. You got young blokes, 19, 20-year-olds who have played 2 games, who chime up with ideas for how they can be better. And I think it's probably the best way to run a club, depending on the culture of the club. But it's funny how so many clubs are still stuck in that old school sort of mentality.
To a degree, like, there's pros and cons to it as well. Like earn your stripes before you say anything.
My word, yeah.
So I'm taking a mental note going, I ain't saying shit for 3 years while I'm here. But there's also, like, I had some thoughts over the years that I never ever
decided to write down.
So I'd go to Kieran, would get out and train, and because Kieran and Daly wouldn't say anything, I'd just like, fuck, Foz, what do you reckon of this? He's, oh yeah, that'll work. All right, we'll play. Okay, can you go tell Snake and see if we can, it'll be like that. Yeah. Can you go ask Snakey if we can have a crack at that, or this is why I did that.
But that's how things work. There's pockets of combinations, that exist right across the field.
Yeah.
You're forming conversations. Well, I was so lucky in the 90s, and pass on regards again. He's just been diagnosed with cancer. Is Malcolm Reilly? Malcolm came to us. It was literally socialism. So it was like everyone has got basically the same rights. Chief's the captain, righto. But if anyone's got an idea, chirp up and do it. Now, when he left and other coaches come in, those younger players would go, "Yeah, I got an idea," and the coach would go, "Sorry,
yeah,
but like." Malcolm ran a really tough regime as far as physically, but there were no mind games, and that just formed a family. You know, I think when I look at the modern game, sometimes there is so much analysis. I hear there are so many meetings and video sessions that, regardless if it's a business or professional sport, you've still got to love it.
Yeah.
You don't win a comp just purely on discipline. You have to love it.
Yeah, definitely. Before we move off your football, can you please tell my favorite story you've ever told me? Can you tell the Richie Fa'aoso story? Where the morgue?
Oh, the morgue. Yeah.
I like it already.
Yeah. Oh, I'm forgetting his name. So, they just. I need to get the story correct because it's been a while since I told this one.
I reckon it was 5 years ago. I still retell it.
Yeah. So, Matty, you've been over the Super League. You know the relegation system.
Yep.
So Richie Fa'aoso was part of a team that had just been relegated, and obviously, you know, everyone's down in the dumps. And I think he might have been playing for Castleford Tigers if they missed a season. Like, that could be the team. Anyway, they used to have this crew over there. I know Richie Fa'aoso was obviously one of them. Willie Manu, remember him?
Yeah, Willie Manu, yeah.
And there was one more. I think Graviani, potentially.
Right.
Guy played a little bit first grade. They used to call him the Mongrels. That was their nickname, right? And that was just around the area. Anyway, so those boys used to run amok all the time. Anyway, they're getting relegated or whatever. But they were sitting together on Mad Monday. And Fuss must just go off just with a mate somewhere and go get some more schooners or whatever it may be. By this stage, the coach, rolls into Mad Monday. Anyway, he walks in and everyone's the music's blaring and everyone's having a good time and laughing. And he goes, turn off the music, and he just gives everyone a spray. Mind you, Richie's away, right? So he hasn't heard any of this. So he comes back in. The team's got a spray. Everyone's sitting around all quiet. And then when Richie rolls back in, he sort of looks around and everyone's all quiet and he goes, "What is this, a morgue? Someone hit the music now." Like this, and then apparently, I think Madison is his name, gets up and goes, "That's the fucking problem with this club. You fucking mongrel." Start spraying him again. But like, Fuss has missed the initial bit where he sprayed him. So yeah, it's one of the great stories. Richie probably tells it a whole heap better. But
I love it. What is this, a morgue?
He goes, "What is it?" And he could do that click thing. You know that? Yeah. Someone hit the music like that. And then everyone, so like there's people laughing and then the coach gets up and he's screaming. But yeah, big Uncle Fuss, he was one of my favourite teammates ever.
Oh, mate, that is so funny.
Because he's got a really good Melbourne story as well. Have you heard that one?
Is it the bellyache one?
Yeah. Frank Panisi was spraying him. Have you? But he's got one at every club. He was.
I'm trying. Yeah, I remember someone retold it. It was. Do you know it?
The short version is Frank. They weren't supposed to drink. Frank was spraying him in a team meeting in front of everyone. Fuss was still half cut, so he thought he'd answer back like, "Hit the music," something like that. And then after he was going for about 10 seconds, and then Belly was sitting in the meeting and goes, "Fuss, shut the fuck up and sit down." And then he just goes,
I'm pretty sure it was something like they were copping a spray for all of them being on the piss. And Frankie was just going, just a standard sort of spray from the GM going, "And you bloody idiots, you shouldn't be going out and drinking when you like." And then he got out and he goes, he got up and he goes, "Who are you calling an idiot, Frank?" Yeah. And then apparently it was just like dead air. And then Bellyache just goes, Bellyache still sitting in his chair, just goes, "Richie, shut up and sit the fuck down."
That's right. He called him a name. He's like, but wasn't alluding to it. "You couple of you idiots" or whatever. He goes, "Who are you calling an idiot, Frank?" Like trying to step him out, and Belly told him to sit down.
A couple of confident schooners.
Was retirement tough at first, Scope?
It was okay for me, mate. I was pretty lucky, sort of come back from overseas. Loved my time overseas. I played 2 years for Catalans and then a year and a half for Wakey.
Just quickly on that, what was living in Perpignan?
Loved it.
Loved it.
Loved it. Yeah, it took a while. Like we had a really loose crew there the first year.
Example, who was some of the players?
So Todd Carney.
Oh, yep. Good start.
Dave Taylor.
Another one. Good.
Davatar.
Willie Mason.
Oh, this could be the All-Star loose team.
This was an All-Star team. Gifty Glenn Stewart was over there as well. I loved a schooner. And then the wild card and a guy that might not a lot of people know is Paul Yaton, who played at the Sharks.
Yep,
mate, the little Cornwall, he was loose. So we had a really bad gang. We were coming first equal going into the Magic round over there, which is about halfway through the season, Matty. And then we nearly didn't make the 8 because summer hit and all the beach bars opened. And then that accumulation of that crew just went wild. And they apparently Mitchie Pearce just spent some time over there. He come back and said they still talk about our crew. Like there's an example.
Oh, really?
They use the 16 year, and then there's another year when Chris Walker was there. Texas was there. And they talk about those two crews, and if none of that shit happens anymore and all that.
How did the French react when you're walking down to the beach and Big Dave Taylor's down with his shirt off, just walking around like the coal train? They must have been going, who the fuck? What is that? Look at the size of this.
Yeah, the big behemoth. He was, and he'd really blown out over there too. So he was about 130 of the best.
Yeah.
He used to ride around on that. those little mini skateboards.
Yep. Yeah. Penny skateboard.
Yeah, it was about that big. So he used to just be cruising up Canay Plage, they called it, which is Canay Beach, no shirt on. And just, sometimes have a beer in his hand or whatever.
Those poor wheels.
Yeah.
They would have been hanging on for dear life.
But yeah, big Coley.
The size of the bloke. I remember once shaking his hand, and his hand was felt like about 6 inches thick.
Yeah. Because we used to have pints over there. Everyone drinks pints. No one drinks schooners. And then they do have schooners and middies if you want to drink them, but, everyone has a pint. And the pint would look like a schooner or a middy in his hand when you drink it. Looked like he was completely covering all the rest of us, as you know.
I remember, so after then, I went and played for the Sunny Coast Falcons as Melbourne's feeder club in 2018. And I was 18 years old. We had a good young side. Harry Grant was in it. Jerome Hughes was in it. Paps was in it. And we come up against the Capras, Rockhampton. So after then, Dave Taylor came back and started playing for the Rockhampton, for the CQ Capras.
That's
so
right.
we come up against him. And at this play, if you thought he blew out in Perpignan, let me tell you something. He must have swallowed himself again over there, because when he was playing for Rockhampton, he would have been 150. I couldn't even recognise him. Yeah. And he was the back rower opposite me, an 18-year-old.
It must have been terrifying. You must have been looking at
I was shitting myself. The only thing I had on him was because at that stage he must have backed himself as a little bit of a halfback. So he wouldn't really run at you. He'd get it and then try to chip and chase and shit over you. Yeah. But he didn't have the speed like he once had. So we'd just bounce and Paps would pick it up.
He's the second most just purely talented player I've ever played with behind Hainsey, who could just do crazy stuff, but skill level, chip and chases. He was doing that in the Super League for a period of that year. Super quick off the mark, strong as an ox. Just ticked all the boxes. Just the conditioning and keeping the weight off was his biggest drama.
Hardest thing. Wow. So, coming back, what's the first job in the meter? Was that your goal?
No, not at all. No, I got pretty lucky with it. So, talking about Normie before, him, James Figueroa and Isaac John had a clothing brand called YKTR.
Yep.
It'd done really well for maybe the 2 or 3 years that I was overseas. But we become really close in my last year at Manly, just single boys, end of the season, footy trips, Bali, all that sort of stuff. So during that period I was away, I sort of just come back and started flowing with those boys. Once I got back, did some stuff with them, didn't anticipate it. Isaac was the one who was pretty much running everything.
Yep.
And he goes, mate, I'm, got this thing going on. I don't know what it is. We're going to, do some sports stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all about the merch. Cooper, remember this, at one point.
It's huge.
It was huge.
Yeah.
And it was
I remember it everywhere.
Yeah. So, Isaac said, just come and give the podcast stuff a go. But a point of difference was, because I was a mad US sports fan, I would just only interview players, nothing about footy or very little about footy, and then all about, who their favourite NBA team is,
Gotcha.
who, English Premier League if need be. I could go there because I just loved all sports. Then it slowly just organically grew. got bigger and bigger, and then the platform become bigger. I ended up making a shift about 3 years ago. I was just doing a potty with Mace because me and Mace went back to the Catalan and Manly days.
Yep.
We started doing a show together, sort of flowed into levels, and then it's weird. Like there's no like real moment where I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do now, and I'm going to lock in and doing it. But just over time, started getting the reps.
So Scope, taking that step, because one of the most difficult things when you retire is when you play within a system of play or a team. Everyone has, code words, A and B defender and get to this. And I think sometimes the mistake or the most difficult thing when you retire is going away and finding a vocabulary that allows you to explain, but not using the terms that you used to, is actually going away and finding your vocabulary. You're very good at that. Was it something you had to work on?
I think I've got better at it over the years. But yeah, because and even sort of going back to the stuff about the video early on, like I've always been very observant. Mm-hmm. I've always been a punter. And as the boys know, I love a punt. Bit of a gamble. I used to play heaps of cards, so I was really big on mannerisms. But then, because one of the best traits I got from that is I just love soaking stuff in, like watching people. So I watch heaps of content, and then started to realise the space was going where it was, and then sort of just try to pivot and try to find my own way in it. But even with the SEN stuff now, which is I absolutely love, you get to work with, every now and again we chat with you, Matty, but Sugar's completely different to obviously Bears Head when I have to fill in on the run home. Yep. And then I got Jimmy Smith on Sundays.
Yep.
So I've just been trying to take little pieces from all of them as much as I can and try to learn, because when you get the opportunity to be around guys with like heaps of experience, the last couple of years I've been chalk and cheese. If you listen to some of my potties early on, and I really struggled as to be expected, but I feel like I've got a lot better.
Do you ever go back and listen to some of the early, just to sit, you're sitting in the car and you go, I wonder how I sounded back then?
I did a couple of years ago. I think I'm more confident in myself now, where I don't really have to go back and listen to them. Yeah. There are still, like lessons that you can get from that sort of stuff, but now it's more. Now I'm sort of learning off other people, because I think I've got past the point where I feel comfortable enough in myself, in my own skin. Because I had mad imposter syndrome doing it to begin with. Like when I started the potty, and you got to remember this is like 2019, 18. End of 2019. No one was doing any of this stuff in our area as strong as it is now. Now it's really competitive. But I was like, no one wants to listen to me. Play like a journeyman rugby league player. So then once I got confident in that stage and then started to get more opportunities, then I started to really just embrace it and sort of know where my role was and what I do well, and just loving it now. Doing a little bit of everything, and the level stuff works really well with Mace. Again, another personality to work with. And then at the end of the week, I do SEN, so really enjoying it.
Willie Mason, I want to ask you.
One of the great entertainers.
One of the greats. It's someone that doesn't strike me as being a lot of help with preparing for a rundown. Would that be fair to say? Would you be doing a lot of the heavy lifting?
That's fair. I do a fair bit of the. I guess I was saying to Jack before, there's almost like a little bit of producing going into it. I come up with the plans. I make sure I watch everything. I watch every game. I watch every important show, all the best analysts, and try to get as many of the views as I can before to formulate a show, and then Mace can just take that wherever he wants.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't react. He honestly just says, and he and even though, like, I don't know how much he watches every weekend, and he probably doesn't watch any of the more of the shows, but he watches more footy than probably people give him credit for.
Yeah.
But he can come in after I've seen 7 different views and I feel like I've formulated exactly where I want it to go on a Monday morning. And then he just says something and it takes its own
different turn.
And it goes viral and people love it.
Well, that's a perfect combination. Yeah. You're Kieran Foran, he's Daly Cherry-Evans.
Yeah. Sliding doors moment, mate. That's a full circle. Come back around. I wanted to...
Sliding doors, it's a circle. Mate, 2 completely different things. One is an oblong, the other one is a circle.
Well, bringing it back to the sliding doors. Okay. Another sliding doors moment that's just come to my head. Willie Mason, He went after a certain Newcastle player one time by the name of Tyson Gamble.
Yeah.
Jack, were you at the club at the stage?
Some of my final days at the club. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you want to know?
I want to know. I want to get Scope's perspective first, because when you're doing a podcast, you got a lot of good relationships with players.
Yeah.
And then Mace comes out calling the Knights spine the worst in the comp outside of Kalen Ponga, and that Tyson Gamble was a reserve grader.
Yeah.
To which,
nothing personal.
To which he bit straight back and come back at you. How do you sit in that space? Because you like to have a healthy relationship with a lot of the boys, right?
Look, I understand that's what makes us unique compared to anyone else. So, look, even though I disagreed with the take, and I said it, said it to him. I was like, mate, come on. Like, we started talking about the spines, and I was trying to, think about, but it was so, it was out of nowhere. So, like, I can't sit there and plan and then start trying to, backtrack and try to find worse spines in the competition. Anyway, and then Tyson come back, and it was so funny. And, I'm like, oh, awesome. All right, here we go. We've got a little bit of something here that we can use for the next episode. And then he went rogue. So people don't realize, like, it wasn't the podcast stuff. He started tweeting Tyson. So you remember he said what he said on the potty. And then Tyson, I believe what I was told, Tyson said it tongue-in-cheek to a journo, but it's just on the fine print. So,
of course, yeah.
Like, he was just going, Mace can fuck, he can fuck off or whatever like that. But it was apparently just, very casual or whatever it may be.
And it was exclamation mark.
So anyway, so that's what Mace sees, and he goes red. The next week, they're playing the Warriors over there. Tyson has a rough game. And Mace starts tweeting he's the worst fucking six of all time or whatever it was. So it wasn't actually the podcast stuff. And then all the backlash come off the back of it. We had people, like, because I control the socials for us, me and Lukey do, we get all the DMs and that they come back from it. And there was so much coming back during that period. And then it got to the point where I was like, all right, now we need it. Like, this was going to be fun this week, but because of that tweet and because he's gone at him and just completely hammered him, I was like, all right, we got to pull back. And then lucky, we're not live with the podcast like you guys are, Matty, because there were some times where he just went on. You could see him. He's just like ready to talk about the Knights. And then we talked about the Knights and he'd just hammer him for 2 or 3 minutes. We'd have to take it out. Like, I even told him a couple of times, I said, mate, we can't. That's, that's.
Was it that hard?
Yeah.
I remember Scope, because I was sort of understood this space. And I'd always tip blokes up with little things like around, those sorts of headlines and how it is perceived on text versus someone actually saying it. I remember saying to a few of the boys, because remember blokes were sharing it. I remember because there was a few headlines on whatever platforms, and blokes were resharing it, saying like, bullshit and whatever on their social media. Like, I'm sure you guys would have seen a spike of numbers.
Seen heaps. Yep.
Yeah, and social media through that period. It was a bit like, because Tyson's a champion fella. Now, he cops a lot of, for the way he plays. When he came down from Brisbane, honestly, I didn't even think he had a bad bone in his body till he played round 2 at Leichhardt when the ball went up to David Nofaluma, and I'd heard words that I hadn't heard in the football team for years. But honestly, he's that good a fella. But the thing was, it was a bit of you could tell after a period that Willie was playing the game.
This is where I disagree. And a lot of things you're saying there, Jack. Kalen messaged me, by the way. He messaged me and goes, mate, Tyson's a legend. Like, sort of not levels, me directly, because we'd done a few things together. And I was like, yeah, it's just sort of saying to Mace. I said, Mace is getting a bit carried away. I think the thing that sort of got Mace more frustrated is because of the backlash off the back of it. Because he was getting hammered, like a lot of Newey fans, and he loves Newcastle. Mace loves Newcastle. So it divided a bit of a fan base as well, because a lot of people sort of stuck up for Tyson. A lot of people were probably saying, Tyson's a good, like a solid 5'8", but he's not the best. So all the back and forth, I think that's where Mace sort of got caught up in a little bit. Yeah. And it dragged on a little bit longer than it had to. But he's complimentary now every now and again. Like it took a while to get past it, but we're past it.
Like, I understand Willie takes things to the nth. He takes things to the extreme. But he has played for Australia. He's played State of Origin. He's won grand finals. He's won a Clive Churchill medal. Now, I look at Willie and you think, oh, geez, it's quite harsh. But I tell you what's far worse. People who first come into the media, whether it be their own podcasts or websites, and absolutely hammer players purely to try to get clicks and try to get going. Like, there used to be a time when you actually had to do your dues and go away to actually form opinion, allowed to. These days, people will just walk into the media, and their modus operandi to actually becoming someone in the media is just hammer as many players as they can, and one of them will stick.
Yeah.
One will get traction.
As you know, Matty, like, and being with mainstream media at times over the years, like that's what separated us in podcasts when I first started from mainstream media. It was more about good, like feel good stories and educating people and telling a different side of story that probably the mainstream wouldn't have shown back in the day and used to be, some of the clickbait stuff. And then it sort of like felt like, there are people where it's gone full circle. It's gone back in order to make yourself known in a podcast, this space. Then you go hard and try to look for that. But yeah, I reckon it was more just with Mace. It wasn't necessarily about continuing it with Tyson. Felt like he was going back and forth a little bit with the fan bases.
He was angry.
Yeah.
What I don't like you do it quite well, Matthew, where you've got a show where you sometimes have to be critical of players, sometimes have to be critical of players you might know, teammates of Jack and I, and you do it very well where you tell your honest opinion, but you don't need to – there's a lot of people on TV coverage who will sometimes just strip a player down on the back of articles and things or lack of form, but without providing a solution. You do it quite well where you go, this player isn't playing well. I think he needs to get back to this to get back to the level we know he can play at.
Yeah.
And I think there's what players – I know that what current players don't like is they don't like people just sort of hitting them straight between the eyes with no idea of how they could get better.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think we all know as players, I mean, I could speak personally, got hammered quite a bit when I was playing. And, we all know what it was like when a journo would spray you on TV. And at the time, you're going, fuck this journo. Fuck this
journo.
And
coaching as well.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like constructive criticism.
Yeah.
You can take that. I used to love that from coaches.
Yep.
So you know how to learn, you know what to work on. So coaches just drop you and don't say anything and brush you. Like, what are you going to learn from that?
Well, I've written articles sometimes and had angry calls from coaches, and I say to them straight up, I said, look, at the end of the day, I said, go back and read it. You've read it. You've read parts of it and taken offence. I've just written 600 words of great advice for you.
Yeah.
Go back and read it. Like people will get there and they're so sensitive because you say, look, he's not playing well. This side are struggling in this area. If they get back to that, and they'd take offence. And you go, if you're going to take offence at that, right? If you are so thin-skinned, you're taking offence to that. I'm sorry, you're in the wrong game.
Yeah, I will say there actually are a few assistant coaches out there who listen to some of the podcasts to get like information.
For sure, there would.
Yeah.
They'd be throwing off now. See, I'm throwing. I throw off.
Yeah, word. Take some stuff off you.
Well, it's so easy to just come out and say, "Oh, that's player shit."
Yeah.
People say, let's just.
And we're not having a go at Mace here, by the way. We don't want to get a Willie's bad side.
No. But Mace will come out and he'll do an initial hit, but then he'll say why he believes that. It's so easy for someone to just go, "Oh, mate, he can't play," stuff like that. Well, if that's as big a critique as you can give someone, well, you got an IQ problem.
Well, that's the beauty with Mace too, right? Like, even though I'm super planned with how I think it's going to go and making sure we've got a show that could last a certain amount of time, he is watching all the games. So, like, even though he might not be as planned or know where it's going, he's got an opinion on everything.
Yep.
Yeah. And he coaches, right?
And it's a strong opinion, yeah. And he coaches younger and mentors younger kids, and he's got a wealth of knowledge. Like, he talks a lot about, he's got really good relationships with Wayne and Gus over the years. Gus is a bit of a mentor for him. So when you're constantly around those guys, like, some of the stuff he might say might blow people away, but it's not like it's like I said. Even though it's he's not planning the show, there is thought process behind everything what he says.
Yes, yeah. What's his mum? Is his mum going okay? Willie's mum?
Yeah, I believe so. She had a bit of a scare about a year ago now.
Did she? Okay.
But yes, he goes up and. I think his brother's living up the Central Coast.
Is that Les?
Les, Big Les, yeah.
Now, the younger brother, he was a really good footballer, the younger fella coming through at the Knights.
Was he?
Yeah.
So Mace has got I should probably know this a bit better, but he's got about 8 brothers and sisters, maybe
Really?
more.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, something like that. But
he had a younger brother coming through at the Knights in the under-20s. He was good. He was a good footballer. Really, really good.
Heath Mason's not related.
No, sorry, mate. What was that?
I just turned into Mike Tyson. Shit, I don't know. My tongue got stuck between my teeth.
Your tongue went spinal.
Yeah. You know what? Oh, before we get in the Lone Star, the last little Mace thing. I remember the first time I ever knew what where the boys in the off season they'll get an Airbnb together and they'll lock in for a few days and they'll go down to the beach and have a drink. The first time I ever sort of was shown that was actually Willie Mason and a few of his ex-teammates. They rented a joint just around the corner from us here. Texted, remember that? Yes. Texted Dad, say, mate, come over, bring the boys. We got in there, and let me tell you something. They were well hydrated. It was it was about mid-morning. And
hydration's one word for it.
Yeah, a few electrolytes. And I remember just going and going, geez, why did you bring us there, Dad?
I know. I didn't realise till I'd actually walked in and realised I'd walked you into a Mad Monday, basically.
Yeah. It was a loose crew.
So, explain what it is. I'm not good at explaining.
Right, this is the last thing we usually do. You ready for this? So, you listened to the potty before?
Yeah, I'm a clips guy. I listen to all the clips. So
sweet. So that doesn't come down as a number. That's fine.
Yep.
It doesn't come down as a download.
Just listen for 2 seconds.
Yeah, sweet, perfect.
Okay.
So this segment, Lone Survivor, he's going to give you a category and then go. It's like Would You Rather. He'll give you 2 players or 2 something, and you pick, and you continue to go until there's one left, a King of the Hill, and they're the winner of that category.
All right.
Matthew, what is the category?
Greatest teammate.
Oh,
okay. First 2: Fletty Mateo, Krishnan Inu.
Oh, that's tough. Chrissy, spent longer time with Chrissy and we went to school together.
Okay, Krishnan Inu, the Wolfman, David Williams.
Chrissy.
Okay, Chrissy, George Tafua.
Oh,
picking favourites.
I live with Georgie.
You know, Georgie once, we had a person associated with our show, like a producer of sorts, who did a bit of a skit on Georgie, giving it to Georgie. Anyway, Georgie sent a message through to the producer. Our producer, honestly, was in the fetal position for 3 years.
Mate, that would be scary. I remember first time I ever met him, I was down at Lockie Croker's birthday in 2019, and Georgie was there blind, and he mustn't have realised my last name was Johns, and he kept calling me Jonesy. He kept going, Cooper Jones. And the boy, Brad Parker, was going, Georgie, his name's fucking Johns.
No, I think he knew.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, that seems like something Georgie would do.
Cooper John.
We used to live around the corner together. Like, we just not too far away from. That was the house that I lived in with Georgie for a year. Yeah.
Oh,
good
really?
Fun. Yeah.
How good.
Wow. Ken Jam. Remember he nearly sent Munster to Purgatory.
Oh, mate. Purgatory? Yeah, okay. Eric Groth Jr., George Tafua. Georgie, Luke Burt. Georgie, Tim Manor.
Georgie,
Matty Ballon.
Georgie,
Chock Watmo.
Georgie.
Oh, mate, he's on a roll. Georgie, Nathan Kalis.
Georgie,
Fui.
Oh, Fui was cool, but Georgie, yeah.
Okay, Georgie, Glenn Stewart.
Georgie,
Tamana Tahu.
Georgie,
DCE.
DCE.
Okay, we've taken the left turn. Righto. DCE, Brett Stewart.
DCE,
Jared Hayne.
Ooh,
Glenn McGrath.
DCE.
He's the last one, the biggie, Nathan Haimash.
That's easy.
DCE.
Yeah. Scope, thank you for coming over,
Thanks,
mate.
Matty.
Really appreciate it. Congratulations on all your work, mate.
Bloody Scope.
Good on you, brother.
Thank you, mate.